Okay, let's try again. Welcome back. Hopefully everyone can hear me this time. If you can't hear me, then there's something definitely wrong with my internet, so I do apologize. Happy Tuesday, happy solstice. Welcome to our Facebook Live on Visiting with Seniors in Care. One of the things I was speaking to a little bit earlier was this idea that we get quite a number of phone calls from caregivers who are always looking for ideas or ways to visit with individuals in a care facility or in a assisted living complex or even in a community living setting. If there's challenges to whether it's cognition or mobility, even physical senses like hearing, seeing, it really has to change the way that we communicate and visit with the person that we're caring for. So we thought we would just talk a bit about some of the ideas that we have found successful. If you have any ideas, please put them in the comment section and we can add them to our list of resources. It's really helpful to hear from others what's working and not. Okay. It's still not working with the sound. I'm not sure what to say. Ugh. Okay, so I'm sorry. We are desperately trying to work on the sound. It sounds like it's working. We're sorry for these glitches. You'd think after 16 months of COVID that we would have figured this out. Okay, thank you. We're back. So I just wanted to kind of share this experience that I recently had. I was visiting one of our clients in long-term care. And this individual is elderly, but they could equally have not been elderly. Had some challenges with mobility and having some challenges with cognition. And of course, things have loosened up a little bit with COVID, so we have a little more ability. Like we were able to go out onto the deck, for example. And I'd been hesitating about utilizing a interactive pet. It turned out that the facility that she was living in had a couple extra that they were just waiting to find the right person with. And I had said, oh, do you think we could try one of these interactive puppies? And I said, she's never, I know she used to have a dog, but I wasn't sure, she would really sort of take to this interactive animal. And I just wasn't sure where she was at, cognitively, or if she might feel, affronted by that. Anyway, it was the most beautiful experience to watch her interact with this puppy, and it's really become central to a lot of our visits. We do a lot of fun things now that's centered around this particular animal, and we get really kind of creative in our approach and in our conversations. And I've really also learned to let go of some of these expectations around maybe what I hope to get out of those visits or what I think I'm providing within those visits. And it was a really good learning experience for me, despite being in the business of gerontology and working with caregivers and seniors for over 20 years. There's always these moments of learning. So I think perhaps that's one of the first things I wanted to speak to is this idea that, what works one time doesn't always work another time. And maybe what we used at the start when we've been visiting with our loved ones in a care facility or the people we're caring for, as things change disease-wise, that we're also going to have to change in our approach and, thoughts around what does a visit mean to us, mean to them? What does a successful visit look like? So I just wanted to sort of start there. I also think it's really important, in some ways it's important to be aware of the challenges, of course, but that we don't try and bring those labels too much to the experience. Because I think consciously, whether we're aware of it or not, it can create this social or emotional or physical distance between the person that we're caring for, the person that has those challenges, and our role. And so it might actually limit our interactions. So just in that whole experience with the client that I was describing with the interactive pet, I'd sort of brought my own limiting belief that I thought, well, maybe those puppies are a bit too childish, or maybe it might offend her. And I realize now that really, unless we try something or unless, we really try and think outside the box, that it can limit our experience. It's been this wonderful positive aspect, something I never would have thought that we would be doing together. And I understand that also that could change too, and that this puppy might have a limited lifespan. All puppies do, all dogs do, but that the experience might. And I think I just want to really bring that piece too, that we want to make sure that we don't lose an opportunities to engage or connect or have meaningful moments, kind of based on our limiting beliefs or perhaps what we bring into that relationship. One of the things that a lot of clients, senior clients, and even caregivers often teach us, and I say us in terms of other peers or other individuals, is this idea that I think a successful visit is really to try and connect with the person wherever they're at in that moment on that day. And I suppose that rings true for all of us as human beings, that, being together, sharing moments, telling stories, experiencing our senses, it's really at the heart of relationships. And I also want to acknowledge that it's really understandable and normal for some family caregivers and other individuals to feel uncertain or a little uncomfortable in how to visit with an individual in a care facility or assisted living, or when things are changing cognitively. It's one of the things we hear from family caregivers with friends, where friends will come and visit the person they're caring for, whether they've had a stroke or they've got Parkinson's or a brain injury, and they often have more challenges because the person that they identified with before the health event or before the disease has changed, and their comfort level has changed. So that's the hope of today's conversation, is just to bring awareness around ensuring that we don't limit our beliefs around how we can interact, and this idea that really communication is always possible. It might look different, it might feel different, and so we hope that will make you feel a little more comfortable. So one of the things that I think is perhaps the most important, I find, when I am going to visit with the senior clients that we have in care, is that in the basic sense, being with someone and being there with them is about being present. And even though, for example, in my other role as a gerontologist, I get paid to go into to a care facility as someone's advocate, but also to ensure that person has meaningful engagement and activity, I still need to check in with myself if I've had a bad sleep or if I'm frustrated about something. So one of my real principles is I always give myself 5 minutes before I'm entering into my role as a surrogate family caregiver at the door before I visit. And I really check in with how I'm feeling, what I want to bring to this visit. And I find that just that 5 minutes is really helpful for me. It really also gives me permission, if I'm not having a great day, to lower my own personal expectations of what I'm able to deliver. And also, when I enter in that room, the one thing I do is I really check in initially with the person that I'm visiting with and try and get a sense of where they're at before I do any engagement. And to me, that really helps set the stage. It keeps me present, but it's also, for lack of a better word, doing a little bit of an environmental scan. And I have found that number one has been probably the most popular, or not popular, the most beneficial way to ensure a really successful visit. I think the other thing, and I suppose as a gerontologist, this is a lot of our training, is that we really focus on that despite aging and despite disease, that we, at the heart of it, we all want to maintain our identity, our sense of competence. It's really central to all of us as human beings. And this attribute continues as we age. And so while we may not always see that, or there are some circumstances where we really do have to change our approach, and competence does change, it's this concept and this belief that, when I try to go into visits, and I hear this from other professionals and other caregivers, is this mantra that the person that we're visiting with, in whatever way we can, we want to ensure that we allow them to be as competent as possible. The other piece that I have found really strong, and to be honest, the experience, some of the recent experiences I've had with COVID, and then now post-COVID, well, not completely post-COVID, but in terms of what things being opened up a little bit more, is this idea of how emotional memory persists, especially with those that have some cognitive challenges. And so at times, many of my clients may no longer recognize me by name, but they recognize me by face. And they'll often do things like they'll get really excited, they'll clap, they'll smile, they'll say, I know you, and they do. And the memories they have with me, because a lot of the clients that we serve, they've been clients for over 6 or 7 years. And so we have become almost their primary, because their families don't live here locally. And so this emotional memory persists with them. And so these feelings often come to the surface, and they're often quite stronger. And so that's obviously a very positive connection with us, but that can also be translated into other memories that maybe are more difficult. And so to understand that feelings often come across stronger and more expressive and more direct. The other thing that I have found, and of course we've been really limited with this in COVID, and this has been, I think, one of the greatest challenges, is that our ties of affection are affirmed simply by spending time with someone. And I have noted, that obviously the more time, I spend with someone, especially with changes as they age, there's the trust piece, but also this affection, emotional affection, physical affection, social affection, that gets stronger as the relationship continues. And I think, so then that physical presence, or that phone presence, or video presence, it's a real piece that helps affirm that affection for each other. We touched on this idea of changing our expectation as the person we're caring for, as their functioning undergoes changes. So for example, I was speaking to this experience with the interactive puppy. So what I want to say is that this individual's been in care now for 3 years. And so when she first went into care, our experiences at the start were very different. We did a lot of cognitive games. We did a lot of mobility, and would do lots of walking in the forest. That capacity for her was really high. And now in 3 years, where she's at with her abilities, is she is bound to a wheelchair. She can still self-mobilize. Her rhythm of speaking is still there, and so we can have a conversation, knowing the limitations of that conversation, but she really feels engaged in this conversation. She could not remember what we talked about. She doesn't recognize me by name anymore, and she will say things like, you have been with me for 11 years, or you are me for 11 years. So she's really understanding, or not 11 years, but for a very long time. And I will say, yes, I have been with you for 11 years. And she'll say, you're my best friend, areas like that. And so our visits now are very different. They're really about maybe trying to find these moments where she feels that she is really contributing and engaging in this conversation. Small pleasures, music, birds, nature. She loves music. She loves Dolly Parton. And so I'm quite fine doing very similar activities every visit because it's what she enjoys and it's what she gets meaning from. So I've really had to also take my own step back, and my own expectations as a provider have had to change. And, I think that's maybe been a little harder on me than it has been on her. So that brings me to the next point, that, for example, as the language skills sometimes diminish, especially with dementia, I find I place less emphasis on expecting answers to questions. And I often don't always ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I might say, what's your, favorite flavor of ice cream? Or do you remember the first time you went on a plane? Where did you go? Or things that come to mind. What's your favorite flower? Or what's your favorite color? Really kind of sort of keep things and to kind of see where the conversation goes. And if it becomes difficult, then I'll often fill in those gaps myself. There are times where there is no talking, where it is focusing on different experiences through different senses. So visual, hearing. I used to think that taking one of our clients out for a drive, was an activity that maybe was less engaging. This is 15 years ago. Now, especially as we're able to do a bit more, I've really understood the value of just getting someone out of their environment and putting them into a new environment where they're safe and secure and they can just fully enjoy all the senses and seeing trees and roads and other people and beaches, and just that alone has been remarkable. The other thing that I have really worked on is developing playlists for our clients. So a lot of our clients like, whether it's country music, whether it's, rock and roll. I've got one client that loves AC/DC. And so we have designed these great playlists for our clients, and we've put them on, their devices if they have them, and staff will often work with us to, help them engage and play music at that level. But it's also become a larger part of ours when we are traveling, just for a little bit. It's kind of nice to have them to enjoy the hearing, while they're seeing, and focusing less on the talking. The other thing that I have also really found, this or idea of language, because I think this comes up quite a bit, is people will say, well, I just don't know what to say, or I just don't know how to talk, or I don't know how to, how to start conversations. I have found that I often, really turn my questions more into, statements versus asking a lot of questions. It really takes the pressure off everyone. And so also as part of my check-in, I do try and think about some things that I can speak to, or different things that might be really interesting. Like if I know if our client really likes animals, for example, there's these great videos now where there's a cam and you can watch all this wildlife crossing a bridge, for example, in the States somewhere. It's 3 minutes, but you can see they see bears and deers and everything sort of walking through, and just the joy in that moment that someone receives and that satisfaction is absolutely, I think, at the pinnacle of what makes a successful visit. So I think it's also, just spending a little bit of time thinking about, okay, what do I have in my toolbox when I go in and visit with the person I'm caring for. And that brings me, kind of to my next area is developing your own toolbox. And I think it's really dependent on the person, but here's some things that we have found really helps. I've got some really great clients that love, kind of just watching, like little short video clips of whatever kind of, whatever, speaks to them. I've got one client that used to be a dancer, so we're going to be, putting together, some fun little dance videos, or pictures or magazines, anything that just kind of helps drive engagement. I also have clients that love to, love pictures and sort of this idea of scrapbooking and organizing them. And so then, we'll have a box of goodies where that person can, take some pictures and do whatever they want to do with them in terms of, glue them on the back of paper and add some stuff to them. And then, we make sure we get them up on the wall or in their, their binder. One thing I've really learned is, especially with individuals, with some cognitive changes, is really to label all those pictures on the back or the front or, around that family hierarchy or friend hierarchy, to really help not only them orient, but also people that are visiting with them. It's such a great conversation starter. I have a family caregiver who I work with who is just absolutely amazing, and she lives long distance, but she hasn't been obviously, but she is planning her next visit. And one of the things she loves to do is she loves to come and really change things up in her mom's room. And she'll, bring a whole box of great things and new pictures, and she'll go in and she'll just kind of change the landscape in the bathroom, for example, and put up a whole bunch of fun, props. And she engages her mom. She'll say, which picture do you like better? Like this one or this one? And then it goes up in the bathroom. So it's all, very purposeful and engaging, but also with the intent to really provide a landscape for her mom to enjoy, considering she's spending so much time in her room, which is absolutely amazing. So I hope that's given you just some ideas around successful visits. I know we've got lots of great resources at Family Caregivers of BC that have just been updated. And before I wrap up, one thing I did want to say is that there's many parts to a transition to long-term care. And so often some of these principles that we're talking to about visiting someone in long-term care are often very applicable prior to it. So that, this idea of how do we engage with an individual, who's even living at home, who has physical, cognitive challenges. But the second piece is some of the resources we have at Family Caregivers of BC are really great resources through that transition. So for example, we have information on what to look for when you are, looking at long-term care facilities, what questions to ask. We talk about this idea of, what those transitions look like. And so today we're focusing on how to visit, but we want to acknowledge and recognize that the transition to long-term care has many different steps along the way. So finally, I always like to come back to this definition of what a successful visit is. And I, personally, with the number of years that I've been, working with seniors and especially those in long-term care, I really believe that, success is sharing an experience with the person that you're caring for, and that letting them know that they're not alone is quite an accomplishment in itself. Enjoying an activity that gives them meaning and purpose is such a win. I think a good visit is really about enjoying the moments of reality they experience, and success is seeing them smile and knowing that your visit is leaving them with a good feeling, and hopefully yourself as well. I remember I was speaking to, my husband, and he went this one day, he said, it must be so hard. Like, how do you not think about them in there for, all day, and you're in there to see them for a short amount of time? Like, how does that not? And I said, well, it's because if you think like that, if I were to think like that, then I could never have a successful visit. The reality is that this is where they're at. And, that in itself is challenging, and that's a whole other topic around grief and loss. But, my purpose in that moment is to share an experience and to create, as much joy as possible, or to leave them knowing that they're loved and cared for, and that we've had this wonderful experience together. And so that is a successful visit. So with that, I wish you all the best with your next upcoming visit. And if you have any other questions, or if you have resources you want to share, please leave them in the comment box or send us a message, and we would be happy to respond. I hope you have a wonderful week. I feel like a bit of a mom when I say this, but keep hydrated. It's supposed to get really hot all across BC. Enjoy the sunshine and the flowers, and we will see you next month. And hopefully we have no audio problems. I do apologize about that again. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.